Hey there, party people. Welcome back to Orthodox Review, the most uneducated and yet snooty channel on the internet. Kind of. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Orthodox Review, the most uneducated educational program on the internet today. I am your host, the guy with 1.5 thumbs. At any rate, this is episode 59. 59, moving right along. Today we're going to be going over the private devotions of Lancelot Andrewes, published by Lancelot Andrewes Press, a renowned publisher of Western Rite Orthodox materials and quality reprints of some decent Oxford titles. Before we get into the review, as always, I have to beg, like, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon if you're so inclined. PayPal tip jar is a good way to throw a couple cents at the show if you so choose. Also, check out the links below for where you can purchase this book and others like it, as well as a list of trusted Orthodox sellers that I just happen to like and think their stuff is worth shouting out about. So, with all that nonsense out of the way, let's get right into it. Okay, so Lancelot Andrewes, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to give you the briefest of synopsis of his life. He is one of the quote-unquote early fathers of Anglicanism. And he was actually the head of the committee for the translation of the King James Version of the Bible. So a lot of the language you see in the King James, he is directly responsible for. So kudos to him for that, and you'll be seeing a lot of that language throughout this book. Now, the first English edition of this book was in 1684 from Richard Drake, and of course it had, a silly non-English title, Préces Private, which is, guess what, private devotions. The second reprint, no, not the second reprint. The second version, which is the one that this one is based on, was published by Oxford in 1844, and that was a translation by John Henry Parker. Translation. Why translation, you say? Because the dude was English. Well, he wrote two different sections, one in Latin and one in Greek. The Latin one based on Latin tradition, and the one in Greek based on Greek tradition. And there's a lot of plagiarism. Okay. There is plagiarism, but this was originally a private devotional book, so dude can write whatever he wants. But you will see that it is heavily influenced by Scripture, by especially the Psalms, with hints of prayers from the fathers of the Church, and those will be recognizable. Now, before we get into the text itself and the critique thereof, let's say the good stuff. Lancelot Andrewes Press, as always, has done a marvelous job with the binding. It's that nice cloth-bound hardcover, really good sewn binding, nice and sturdy. The stitching is just fantastic. The print is not too shabby. It's a pretty standard, Times New Roman-ish. What does it say? What the font is? No, but there are two things that they don't list in this book. The font, and also the editor at Lancelot Andrewes Press, who's responsible for correcting a few things in the book, trying desperately to bring it in line with orthodoxy, to varying degrees of effect. But anyway, so solid book. Looks good in any library. But let's get into the text here. Now, as you can see, I did use, for a change, some bookmarks, and they're color-coded and number-coded, so we can get through this in as quick and as painless a time as possible. So let's jump right into it. Note 1. First of all, within the devotions, you will see morning and evening prayers and meditations that are largely based on prayers that you would find in normal devotional books, both from the East and the West. And this one, The Hedge of the Law, called Precautions. And it's really more of, like, okay, you know how in our books we have like an examination of conscience? Well, this is more like an examination of behavior, which, yeah, behavior. Legalistic, like clearly Western influence. A lot of this stuff is blatantly Roman Catholic and Anglican, so it's not an Orthodox book. It's just not. The second one, an Orology. Dude straight up tries to mimic St. John Chrysostom's prayers for the 24 hours of the day. Again, to varying effect, lovingly written, I'm sure, as the man was a fan of the Fathers. The third section, we have acts of adoration here, but before going to church, and this is in the Latin devotions, this is straight up a paraphrase of the prayer you will find in most Orthodox prayer books before going into the church, based on the Psalms. But I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercies, and in thy fear I will worship towards thy holy temple. Hear, O Lord, the voice of my prayer when I cry unto thee, when I stretch forth my hands toward the mercy seat of the holy temple. We wait for thy loving kindness, O God, in the midst of the temple. Remember, O Lord, our brothers that are standing around us, praying with us at this holy hour, for their zeal and devotion. Remember them also who on reasonable causes are absent, and pity them and us, according to the multitude of thy loving kindness, O Lord. So, you can see the prayers are not, they're not like overly pietistic, I guess. And so they're actually very comfortable to read because of that King James English he's responsible for. And of course, under the heading of a morning hymn of very ancient usage in the church, yeah, it's the doxology. Straight up. It's the doxology, which I guess that far west had been kind of fallen out of practice, which I find hard to believe, because even growing up Roman Catholic and then becoming Anglican for a short while, I still remember the doxology very clearly, long before coming to Orthodoxy, so I don't know why he just called it that. It's odd. And the fifth one I wanted to bring up was just a point of interest to me. In my bullet notes, it just says, lol, what? And I find this this particular part of the prayer just amusing from an Orthodox perspective, but, the guy's heart was in the right place. So let's go through this real quick. Deliver me from all ills and abominations of this world, from plague, famine, and war, earthquake, flood, and fire, the stroke of immoderate rain and drought, blast and blight, thunder, lightning, and tempest, epidemic sickness, acute and malignant, unexpected death, from ills and difficulties in the church, from private interpretation, from innovation in things sacred, from heterodox teaching. From heterodox. Like, that is the most orthodox thing in this book. And for all you Protestants out there, stop being your own pope already. Okay, that's my opinion, but seriously, give Orthodox a look, will you? But all in all, the book is, even if you're not down with the prayers and you're just looking for a historical text to kind of dive into and nerd out about, this is a fantastic read. It really is, because not only does it look into the pietistic and prayerful life of a bishop of the 15th century church in England, and the man responsible for the translation of the Bible that we all love so well. I highly recommend this book, believe it or not. I would say, just, keep in mind what you're reading. But for the most part, like the corrections towards orthodoxy were done pretty well. But there's still several examples of that kind of sensual, physical suffering of Christ focused on that you see in things like the Stations of the Cross or Meditations of the Rosary that are, not orthodox, because it focuses too much on the one nature of Christ and not the other. But outside of that, beautiful book, well made, well printed, well done indeed. So there's going to be a link for this below. Oh, this edition published 2006. I forgot to mention. Anyway, they're pretty good people over there. Kevin especially, you're the man. Anyway, so yeah, pick up a copy, treat yourself. And as always, I hope you're all doing well in these trying and uncertain times. Just keep praying. Just keep praying. Christ God is love, and love is the answer. Love and beauty will save us. At any rate, yes, Spooky Cat's outside, so sorry no Spooky this morning. But I'm sure she would like me to tell you to go to church, say your prayers, and remember God. I love you. God bless.